Hey, it's me, Terry. Welcome to the Mess and the Bliss. Thanks for showing up. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Instead of reading poems that I've written, which poems are coming, I'm going to read something a little bit different. The last few days I've been reeling, as I believe our nation and the world has been reeling, seeing images of George Floyd with a police officer's knee on his neck, him saying, "I can't breathe," asking for his mama. All of those things. If it doesn't tear at your heart, there's a deeper problem. This is something that happens in our country all too often. I think that these images are unrefutable at this point, and people are seeing this sometimes for the first time as the problem that it is. So I wanted to read a little piece of Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And I'll say that now, and then I'll say more later. So just want to get started. This is her little excerpt called Racists. Decades after the day in the therapist's office Donald Trump was elected president, a friend called me and said, "This is the apocalypse. This is the end of our country as I know it." I said, "I hope so. Apocalypse means uncovering. Gotta uncover before you can recover." She said, "Oh God, not more recovery talk. Not now." "No, listen, this feels to me like we've hit rock bottom. Maybe this means we're finally ready for the steps. Maybe we'll admit that our country has become unmanageable. Maybe we'll take a moral inventory and face our open family secret that this nation, founded upon liberty and justice for all, was built while murdering, enslaving, raping, and subjugating millions. Maybe we'll admit that liberty and justice for all has always meant liberty for white, straight, wealthy men. Then maybe we'll gather the entire family at the table, the women and the gay and black and brown folks and those in power, so that we can begin the long, hard work of making amends. I've seen this process heal people and families. Maybe our nation can heal this way too. I was adamant and righteous, but I'd forgotten that sick systems are made of sick people, people like me. In order to get healthy, everybody has to stay in the room and turn themselves inside out. No family recovers until each member recovers. Soon after that conversation with my friend, I sat on the family room couch and patted a spot to my left and one to my right, and I said to my daughters, "Come here, girls." As they sat down and looked up at me, I told them that while they were asleep, a man who was white had walked into a church and shot and killed 9 people who were black. Then I told my daughters about a black boy their brother's age who was walking home and was chased down and murdered. I told them that the killer said he thought the boy had a gun, but what the boy really had was a bag of Skittles. Alma said, "Why did that man think Trayvon's candy was a gun?" I said, "I don't think he really did. I think he just needed an excuse to kill." We sat with all this for a while. They asked more questions. I did my best. Then I decided that we talked about villains for long enough. We needed to talk about heroes. I went to my office to find a particular book. I pulled it down from the shelf, came back to the couch, and sat between them again. I opened the book. We read about Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, John Lewis, Fannie Lou Hamer, Diane Nash, and Daisy Bates. We looked at pictures of civil rights marches. We talked about why people march. Someone said that marching is praying with your feet, I told them. Emma pointed to the white woman holding a sign, marching in a sea of brown and black people. Her eyes popped and she said, "Mama, look, would we have been marching with them like her?" I fixed my mouth to say, of course we would have, baby." But before I could say it, Tish said, "No, Emma, we wouldn't have been marching with them back then. I mean, we're not marching now." I stared at my girls as they looked at me. I thought of my dad in the therapist's office all those years ago. It was as if my girls had turned to me and said, "Mama, how do you imagine we might be inadvertently contributing to our country's sickness? A week later, I was reading Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous essay, Letter from Birmingham Jail, and I came across this. I must confess that over the last few years, I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in this stride towards freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klan, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. You constantly say, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action. This was the first time I had encountered language that defined the kind of person I was in the world. I was a white person who imagined herself on the right side of the civil rights because I was a good person who strongly believed in equality as the right idea. But the white woman Amma had pointed to in that photograph wasn't staying home and believing. She was showing up. When I looked at her face, she didn't look nice at all. She looked radical, angry, brave, afraid, tired, passionate, resolute, regal, and a little bit scary. I imagine myself to be the kind of white person who would have stood with Dr. King because I respect him now. Close to 90% of white Americans approve of Dr. King today. Yet while he was alive and demanding change, only about 30% approved of him. The same rate of white Americans who approve of Colin Kaepernick today. So if I want to know how I'd have felt about Dr. King back then, I can't ask myself how I feel about him now. Instead, I have to ask myself, how do I feel about Kaepernick now? If I want to know how I'd felt about the Freedom Riders back then, I can't ask myself how I feel about them now. Instead, I have to ask myself, how do I feel about Black Lives Matters now? If I want to know how I'd shown up in the last civil rights era, I have to ask myself, how am I showing up today in this civil rights era? I think sometimes it's easy for us as white, privileged people to think that the civil rights is over. Like, we've conquered. And that's not even close to the truth at all. And I think that for me, it's time. I think I've always spoken out, but not as adamantly as I should. And I haven't done what I should. So on my post, I put, I've thought similar thoughts for years, how it's easy to be on the side of civil rights movement with Dr. King now. But are we on the right side of our time's civil rights movement? I knew this book, Untamed by Glennon Doyle, would rock my world. That's why I ordered it before its release and read and listened to it the minute it came. But when I started re-listening slowly last week, who knew this chapter would hit my ears again on the day I heard about George Floyd. I am heartbroken, outraged, sickened, saddened, and I'm muddling through what I do. I'm re-looking at myself and the racism sickness that has pumped through the air we breathe for generations, and I can't breathe. If Black men and women are suffocated, I will grapple deep and hard the next few days, weeks, months, and years, and I will share my wrestling in the arena. Feel free to delete me now, because it's going to get hard, ugly, and dirty before we can move towards beauty. But we can't skip the struggle to get there. Thank you to all of you shining a light in this hideous darkness. Let's go get it. So I am committing here that I'm making a change in how I handle these situations and what I do and what I'm willing to stand up for. So I'll be reading some tough poems that I'm writing, some things I'm looking about in myself and in our country, and I want to be part of the solution. So thank you so much for listening. If you have people that you think need to see this, feel free to share and subscribe. If you feel like this is too much, feel free to delete me. Thanks so much.